Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 70. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Friday show, Steelers Nation. And Dave, we have a jam-packed show. Mike Tomlin promised coaching changes. Didn't promise it, but hinted at coaching changes, and certainly a lot of them to talk about now, at least 4 vacancies on the Steelers coaching staff.
Absolutely. Busy day Thursday for the Steelers, and happy moving day to you. You're moving into Steelers Depot Metroplex Northeast office. Division. Yes. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
I'll try to make this only a 2-hour show for you today, because I know you got to hit the road here.
Yeah, hopefully the moving truck I'm hiring has Wi-Fi, because I think it'll bleed over. This podcast will bleed over into moving. Yeah, it's a good time to fire your offensive coordinator is when I have to move. But anyway, where do you want to start? There's so much news to talk about. Steelers signed 13 players to reserve future contracts. There are obviously other coaching shakeups. Where do you want to begin here?
Yeah, I don't think people are too concerned at the top of the show about the 13 futures contracts.
No, not about John Battle?
No, I'm willing to bet they're wanting us to get to the meat and the potatoes.
Okay. All right, I figured as much. So the big news yesterday, in one fell swoop, the Steelers announced they were parting ways, contracts, not being renewed, which is typical of how the Steelers do things, as we discussed earlier this week, of 3 coaches that included and headlined by offensive coordinator Randy Fichtner, offensive line coach Shaun Surratt, and defensive backs coach Tom Bradley. Later announced that tight ends coach James Daniel had announced his retirement. So Fichtner, obviously the headline name here. I wasn't convinced the Steelers were going to do this, but I endorsed the idea twofold, because I think, A, on the merits, there's certainly a good case to be made to move on from Randy Fichtner, and then B, as Tomlin said, and this is kind of what he promised, was not sticking with the status quo, not doing the same thing over and over, making some level of change, a bigger level of change than I maybe anticipated, but I think that this makes a lot of sense.
Look, I thought they wouldn't move on from Fichtner for the sheer fact related to Roethlisberger. And that was the way I was leaning, that they would potentially go, that they would, cower down, ride it out one more year, But obviously they ripped the Band-Aid off real quick there. Look, it's better to do it right out of the chute here, so you can get a read on things. And I don't know, I'm assuming they didn't ask Roethlisberger's opinion on that. I think they looked at the totality of the direction that they want to move in. And look, I mean, Mike Tomlin said it in so many words, the running game and, just was not up to par, well below par, as a matter of fact, last in the league there. So, some things have to change.
If it's below par, lowest score wins, and the Steelers won there.
Yeah, absolutely. They were quadruple double bogey there, But look, I mean, I don't think we're shocked by it, but they did rip the Band-Aid off, and obviously with Shaun Surratt, we kind of figured that Shaun Surratt would be a casualty in this, and he was, and that's obviously probably going to end up being a good move that way on top of it. And James Daniel, I don't think we're surprised, as long as he's been around the NFL, that he's retiring, and I think that's okay, because the tight ends haven't been great since Heath Miller has left, on top of it. So changes there, and overall, I didn't spill my cup of coffee when they were announced. I guess the timing of it right away, right out of the chute, it sounded like Mike Tomlin was going to take a couple of days there, but obviously that didn't. Everything transpired quickly there, and now we wonder: look, is that just the first round of meetings? Are we looking at guys like Eddie Faulkner as potentially, maybe going out the door today. I think that might still be a possibility. We'll see, though. And obviously they have some holes with Tom Bradley. Really a moot point, right? What did he offer anyway?
Well, I mean, we all recognize that Terrell Austin is really the actual defensive backs coach.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say he offered nothing, but he was more of an assistant. So moving on there, it doesn't change. It doesn't move the needle too much.
Right.
To go with Fichtner, I'll admit, obviously, I had said so many times throughout the season and past, off seasons that, Ben and Fichtner are tied at the hip. And, as long as Ben's here, Randy's going to be here. But I think that change, and my stance certainly softened on Monday show, Wednesday show, just with how disappointing this exit was. Had this team gotten to an AFC title game or a Super Bowl or something like that, even if they didn't win at all, I think there's a good chance that Fichtner returns because they had gotten so far. But just given the disappointment of having more of the same, another quick exit in the playoffs, a disappointing season, disappointing, way to end the year, 1-4 record, 1-5 if you include the wild card loss. That's what really probably compelled this team to look in the mirror and say, we got to make some changes that maybe we didn't anticipate or we aren't entirely comfortable making. But that lack of comfort needs to be the catalyst to do something different, to try something else, to take a risk, and to not worry about playing it safe for what's comfortable or what's stable and things like that. So I think that's ultimately probably what shifted the mindset for this team.
How much is this, do you think, is this a move to kind of maybe force Ben's hand, or will we learn more about that as the next offensive coordinator is chosen, Because, look, I kind of figured that Roethlisberger would play out, and that was the same reason as well, too. I thought those two would be tied at the hip for one more season, and then off they both ride into the sunset, if you will. Mm-hmm. So how much is this? Look, Ben's just going to have to get over it, and especially if Matt Canada's not chosen as the guy to succeed him. Talking about Randy Fichtner, and where you see where I'm coming. Where's the magnitude of this?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Obviously, I think this team can't be beholden to what Ben wants. Not that you can overcorrect and say that Ben shouldn't be involved or shouldn't have input or his play and style shouldn't be taken into consideration with whoever the next OC is. But I think you just look at the merits of it. I don't think you try to overcomplicate or overthink these things and say, did Randy Fichtner, deserve to have a new contract? And I think it's easy to argue the answer to that is no. And I tweeted this out last night. I've really harped on this point throughout the losing streak, throughout the back half of the season, about the poor starts for this team. One offensive touchdown their last 10 games, one opening drive touchdown the last 33 drives, the last 2 seasons, plus the playoff game. It's the lowest in football. Every other team in football had at least 3 opening drive touchdowns. The Packers have 17. The Steelers have 1. And there's a lot of reasons for that. That's not all coaching. Obviously, there's execution problems for sure. But I think that opening script is the most reflective part of game planning, because those are the things you script and game plan for. And, that is the hallmark of any offensive coordinator, any play caller. And this team has struggled no more than the start of games. And I'm ranting a little bit here just to kind of make the point on Fichtner. But overall, I think if you just sit there and say, did Fichtner deserve to come back? You can easily argue no. And that's the only calculation that really matters.
So that's the catalyst. Nothing to do with Ben. We just got to move on from that. And if the quarterback doesn't like it, he doesn't like it.
Yeah, I know some people are speculating, is this a way to tell Ben to retire without actually telling him to retire or having to cut him or some sort of big brain chess?
I guess that's where I'm going with this. Do you see this in any way as kind of nudging Ben out the door?
No, I don't see it as nudging Ben out the door. I just see it as recognizing that, we just can't do something just because Ben likes it or Ben wants it or he's their guy. And that's something that we talked about on Monday's or Wednesday's show, that you can't have that philosophy of, well, we do it because our quarterback likes him. And that's got to be the sole reason to the driving reason to make that move or not make a move. And so I don't think they're trying to push Ben out the door. I don't think he loves his move, I'm sure, but I think you just have to do what's best for the team.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's not going to like it, especially if a new coordinator's brought in outside and massive changes. terminology and everything like that. That's a lot to learn for a quarterback, really kind of complacent, if you will, with what's been going on here. So I don't know. We've yet to hear anything more out of Ben Roethlisberger, and we obviously don't know who the Steelers' next offensive coordinator will be as of yet. But we have a little bit of carry out the news about one person who will be back in 2021.
Yeah, Keith Butler said to be back, still working on a contract extension. It sounds like it's going to be a year-to-year type deal that I think came from Jeremy Fowler, maybe Jerry Dulac as well, reporting this throughout yesterday. And so the expectation is that Butler will return for at least 2021 as Pittsburgh Steelers DC.
And we know who the DC is now, I think. My thought going back to the show the other day was, look, if you're going to rip the Band-Aids off, rip them all the way off there. But this just screams. I just need Keith Butler to continue to be my mouthpiece and call out some of these defensive signals for at least one more year. And the defense is, it also hints that maybe we think we're going to be able to keep, most of this defense intact. The defense won't have to do anything new. The players like Keith Butler, they're comfortable. We think we can still have this defense and get it back to about where it was in 2020, only minus the collapse that they had in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. The defense did play well overall, despite their fading down this direction. Their abysmal showing in the playoff game. Really, if you moved on from Keith Butler, who are you going to bring in? Because obviously Tomlin has so much control over this. You're not going to bring in some young up and coming DC, probably not. You're not going to certainly bring in a veteran type guy that wants to run the show. So, I mean, if you didn't bring in Butler, what we're going to really do at the position. So, I think that's just the reason there.
Right. Now, the next, let's see, anything else related to coordinator coach news there?
Well, you want to go more into Surratt and Bradley? Or do you want to focus this on Fiedner right now?
I mean, Bradley. I mean, we don't need to spend a lot of time on Bradley.
No.
We know what he was,
Right.
And it's not overly surprising that his contract's not being renewed. Talk about those who are interviewing now elsewhere.
Yeah, two of them popped up yesterday for the Steelers coaches never get interviews elsewhere crowd. The coordinators haven't, but two of the position coaches have. That's Matt Canada. He's getting an interview for the Dolphins offensive coordinator job. He apparently consulted with Miami last season during his year kind of quote-unquote off from football. So he's getting a look there. And Terrell Austin is getting a look as the Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator. So those interviews have happened or will happen soon, and we'll update you whenever we find out more information there.
Yeah, and didn't Canada interview with the Dolphins last year or no?
Did he? I just remember I saw a tweet that he consulted. I'm not aware of an interview, but I'm not sure.
All right. Let me ask real quick about Canada. If he was to be named the offensive coordinator, how long do you – Canada has jumped around quite a bit.
A lot.
In the last 6-7 years or whatnot. How concerning is that? In other words, if he was to be tabbed the offensive coordinator, are you fairly sure he would be here for more, remain in that role, assuming he does his job for more than 2 years?
Probably, just because Pittsburgh likes to have that stability model still. It is concerning, though, and I don't have a good answer for you. That you'd have to talk to the man and talk to other people to find out why his resume is so he has jumped around so much. I mean, he's been at a million different places. He barely stays at a place for more than 2 years and then goes somewhere else for one reason or another. So I don't know how much of a concern that would be, but it would certainly be something that I would have to ask him about if I were interviewing him.
My want and hope and analysis at this point is, now that you have the Band-Aid halfway off with Randy Fiedner not having his contract renewed, you go ahead and rip it off the rest of the way. Because look, Ben, even if Ben returns, at this point, do we really foresee him playing? How many more years? If Ben returns, how many more years will he play? Ahead of the season, right at the start of the season, I thought, pretty good chance maybe he signs an extension, a legitimate extension, not one with false years. He still could, and more on that on a future show here, maybe starting next week. But if there is an extension, I don't think it's going to be a legitimate one at this point, which would take Ben past 2021. Right. So, in other words, is your next should your next coordinator be, twofold? One that can both work with Ben and work with whatever young quarterback is in the system beyond that.
I think it's always your calculation. Again, you can't be beholden to Ben and say, what OC is going to work best with Ben. We don't care about other factors. I think you just have to look at, how good of a coach are you in general. If you can coach Ben well, then you probably can coach other guys well as well. So my expectation for Ben, I think the only thing you can assume right now is that 2021 will be his final year. Anything else, we'll discuss it after. I don't know how they're going to handle the contract situation, if it'll be that, voidable year extension, as you mentioned, or what. But I think you can only, expect and assuming that you want him back, that he's your quarterback in 2021 and no further than that.
Where if Matt Canada was to be tabbed the next guy, where would your confidence level be in him in 2021 and 2021 alone, based on what you saw in 2020?
It would be, again, we're not being beholden to Ben, but it would be a weird dynamic, almost to the point where I'd say, while bringing in an outsider might have different terminology and just the newness of that would almost work better for Ben, just because Canada is that college coach. And obviously Canada will be hamstrung by having a very immobile quarterback for an offensive scheme that kind of is predicated on having some level of mobility at quarterback. So, with him fully in charge, how that would work with Ben might be kind of square peg, round hole type of deal. I don't know. I don't overreact to the move right now before it even happened and before we see it on the field. But that is a thought and concern of mine.
All right, Terrell Austin, that would be a pretty big loss in my opinion, for sure, because you hate to have to go out and find another great defensive backs coach at this process with what you have in there.
Yeah, he's been really important, definitely focusing on turnovers. While personnel certainly helps, it's not coincidence that the moment Austin came in 2019, the turnover numbers spiked. That's one of his calling cards, one of the biggest numbers he focuses on. He's a big emphasis on effort and body language and things like that. So that would be a loss for Pittsburgh, absolutely.
All right.
And with Canada, the thing is, if you don't promote him as your in-house offensive coordinator hire, he's gone either this year or next. Like, basically, this is saying, do we want Matt Canada here long term or not?
All right, and should they want Matt Canada right now?
Right. I mean, I think you would like to, but again, do you like him enough to make him your OC? I'm just saying you have to recognize that if you don't promote Canada as your OC, he's probably taking another job because A, he's pretty good at taking other jobs, and B, he's probably going to be liked enough to get looks elsewhere as Miami's looking at him right now.
Once again, my hope now and thought and analysis is at this point is go ahead and get someone from the outside. Get someone from the outside that you that you can feel can if need be a liaison from Roethlisberger to a potentially younger quarterback.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you think Canada could just serve that role as well? I mean, he would work well, I assume, with a younger quarterback if they draft somebody that's mobile. I mean, that could work well with Matt Canada.
My worry is there would still be that chumminess, if you will. How much would actually change in 2021 if Canada stays because of Ben's heavy influence, and that kind of thing there. And on top of it, I would wonder, look, we saw some of Matt Canada's influences on the offense this year, mostly seemingly early in the season, I thought. And the pre-snap motion worked okay to start with in helping the running game at the start of the season. I remember I charted that first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, but then either due to game situations or whatever, it seemed to get fewer and fewer. They never built off of it. I remember how many times I was calling for, man, start passing off of that or something. And they did, and obviously you're not going to do a lot of that, but do more than what you did, on top of it. And just overall, the whole pre-snap motion at the snap of the football just felt clunky all season long. Timing, just the whole nature of it. It felt very unnatural, clunky. I imagine Ben doesn't like a lot of moving parts like that. The tinsel distracts him.
And just that offense works a lot worse when your quarterback is no running threat at all. I think it felt clunky because it was clunky because this offense is designed around a college system where the quarterback is a threat to keep the ball, and that is a big influence on defenses. When you eliminate that element, you eliminate a big kind of principle of the offense.
And if Canada has all this, which he does, college influence at this point, how much of that is he even going to be able to implement into coinciding with the style of play that Roethlisberger now plays?
That's what I was referencing earlier by saying, in a way, an outside hire might be better for Ben, even though it's definitely new terminology. Although, I'm sure the OC could tailor it. Maybe they have the same background in something like that, so it might not have to be whole new terminology. But in that sense, it almost could work better for Ben specifically.
All right. So what would your recommendation be at this point?
Well, I have an options, 6 options on Steelers Depot that breaks down guys who make sense. Not saying that I'm pounding the table for any of these names, but I just think people that make sense based on their pedigree, resume, connections to Tomlin, always important. So we have Matt Canada, of course. Steelers quarterback coach is someone that would be an obvious in-house choice. That would be that blend between having a known guy who's been in your building, but also only been there for 1 year and doesn't feel completely static the way that, going from Haley to Fietner kind of felt like a static in-house status quo type move. We have Darrell Bevell, the Lions OC, interim head coach. He's still in the running to be their actual head coach, but if he doesn't get that could be an option. Him and Tomlin coached together in Minnesota in 2006. He's worked with great quarterbacks like Brett Favre, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford. Done a pretty good job with those guys, and kind of is known to have a more run-first mentality, and I think that's probably going to be the mindset for the team in the offseason, is focusing on that running game and just getting better in that area because they were abysmal. Jay Gruden in Jacksonville, the OC there, but he's on his way out with Urban Meyer being hired. Gruden and Tomlin worked together in Tampa Bay for several years back in the early 2000s. Tomlin's praised the job that Gruden did in Cincinnati, saying he's a thoughtful guy, keeps you off balance. He's a good fundamental football coach. We have Pep Hamilton, the Chargers quarterback coach, did a great job he did with Justin Herbert. This year he's getting OC looks right now. Aaron Kromer, the Rams run game coordinator, offensive line coach. If you want a real run-focused kind of guy, Kromer would be one of the better options out there. Done a really good job, especially early in his time with the Rams, and Todd Gurley. And then Jim Caldwell, who you mentioned as well. Tomlin and Caldwell have a really good friendship that goes back 15-plus years.
Didn't the two even meet for some sort of was it pre-Haley? I think didn't the two of them have some sort of secret meeting or whatnot that was reported at some point when there was an offensive coordinator job? I want to say it was pre-Haley that Tomlin. It was reported that the two met together.
Okay, I didn't find that, but if you can pull that up at some point, then that would be more backing to it. But Tomlin has said this is in 2016. He said, "quote It's always been a relationship," referring to Caldwell, "that's valued by me." And so Caldwell had some health issues last year. Really wasn't in coaching this year, but has I think gotten a look for head coaching jobs with Houston. And if he doesn't get any head coaching gigs, then OC could be the next job for him.
Here's a report from 2012. Boy, how long ago was that? Were you weren't with the Depot at that point, were you?
No, I think I came in just after that.
Let's see. Tomlin, possible meeting on January 28th with head coach Mike Tomlin and former Colts head coach Jim Caldwell, presumably about the open offensive coordinator position on the Steelers coaching staff and all that. They met at the Omni William Penn Hotel way back in 2012. Regardless, look, Caldwell's kind of sort of a Tony Dungy disciple, right?
Yeah, Dungy just wrote an article in the Houston Chronicle, I think supporting him, or at least there was some reference to it in the Chronicle that said, hire Caldwell to be a head coach, but also, as a coach somewhere in the league.
And we know we know just over time, over the years, that Caldwell and Tomlin are pretty tight,
And Tomlin and Dungy are fairly close as well, obviously working together. So, yeah.
And that's kind of where I have drawn that was initially where my mind went to as far as links to coaches to Tomlin that are on the older side of things, and obviously Jim Caldwell is, but Jim Caldwell is, I don't think he's ever been considered kind of the quarterback whisperer that Bruce Arians is known to be. But I've always taken it that Caldwell's good with quarterbacks in general, both young and old. That's been my overall non-in-depth kind of thoughts on Jim Caldwell.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. So, and the reason why the list is a lot more veteran guys type resumes, because I think if you wanted to go with a more younger college field coach, and you just hire Canada as your in-house kind of guy, and if you want to diverge from that and go with a more veteran guy, then you look at the options I talked about. So that's why my list didn't have the Mike Kafkas or the Mike the 49ers run game coordinator, Mike McDaniel, I think is his name. Well, that's why I didn't really reflect that, because I think if they don't go Canada, then they're going to do that on the basis of let's find someone with a more veteran experience, longer resume type thing. Who knows? They could go a different direction, but just that was my reasoning.
It just doesn't feel like it would be somebody without a link of some sort, right? And once again, if you don't go in-house with Canada, it feels like it will be a head coach OC retread, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That just fits. It would be very out of the box for the Steelers to go super young, younger than Roethlisberger, and someone with zero NFL experience.
Right. Yeah, that's another element too, is just the relationship with Ben. Again, we're not beholden to it, but you have to consider it. You can't overcorrect and say we don't care what works for Ben. I mean, you have to always consider your starting quarterback whenever you're hiring an offensive coordinator. That's just, if you don't do that, you're just fooling yourself. And again, not that there has to be a tie with Tomlin. It's just so often these hires end up having ties with Tomlin. Even the strength and conditioning coach has a tie to Mike Tomlin prior to Pittsburgh, where they worked together in Tampa Bay for several years. So just generally, coaching is relational, and that seems to be often the case in the Pittsburgh hires.
Right.
Right
Name,
or wrong? That's not always the right thing, but that's
what name on your list do you think that I'm surprised you had on that list?
I don't know if any name here is super surprising. This wasn't like some sort of, I found the diamond in the rough type thing. I think Cromer's an interesting name just because he's kind of different in this world of, passing game innovations and spread systems and things like that. Cromer is that focus on the run game and offensive line and things like that. So he's been an OC before too, so wouldn't be brand new to him. But I think Cromer is just kind of that different, cut from a different cloth, I guess, than some of these, innovative pass game quarterback whisperers.
Jay Gruden is a name that I was surprised that you had on that list.
Any particular reason for that?
Yeah, just because of how things went, reportedly in those days with Washington.
Right, and I referenced that. It's got a Haley vibe to it.
You left that out, didn't you?
No, I put that in there. I put a link to it. I said that definitely would have a Todd Haley vibe, but I think obviously there's a difference between Gruden as a head coach and Gruden as an OC, where some of those things would be less of a concern in the sense of you're not the figurehead of the organization.
I just Jay Gruden has that. I don't know if we bring him in, we have to get him fixed.
No, it feels like Todd Haley. It feels like Haley
and who am I to judge, right? But that's what they pay me to do here, right? Look, I can look the other way on and what Gruden reportedly, I don't know, smoking. I forget how.
Yeah, I have a link to that. I mean, I addressed that in the article. But just like Haley, I mean, Gruden has gotten results as an offensive mind. As a head coach, maybe a different story. But if you just want results, then that's an idea to go. And
he's very brash too, much like Todd, much like John Gruden. So
right.
The apple didn't fall too far from the tree, so to speak. I would of the guys on your list, Alex, I would rank Gruden as the least possible.
Okay.
Did you put him in any specific order? Well, obviously you had Canada first because
sure, because he was the in-house guy. From there, I'm not even saying I love any of these.
Did you
candidates.
Subconsciously do it?
I don't think so. I just kind of put them in the order that I came across them. Like Bevel was the first thing I came across, so I just kind of went in the order that I was researching things. But really, there was no real order to it because it's very arbitrary to try to do.
What name on your list, other than Canada, would you lean to?
And what I would prefer, or what I think the team would prefer?
Yes.
Well, I think from a team standpoint, the relationship between Tomlin and Caldwell is pretty well documented, and so I would not be surprised at all. I think even Bruce Gradkowski made a reference to Caldwell.
He must have read my tweet.
I read really for real. Thank you, Bruce. Bill's in the mail. Other than that, like I said, Cromer's interesting, though he'll have to be heavily vetted because there's been some controversy in his past. I think Bevel is an interesting name as well. There wasn't one name. None of these names I suggested are like, they got to hire this guy. They have to bring him in. I'm just looking at guys that are more veteran types that have resumes that have some sort of connection with Tomlin. That was essentially my criteria here.
And when I threw Caldwell out, I think I cautioned that I don't necessarily think my biggest concern with him is his age.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
65.
Right, with him and how in tune at this point is he with the newer age offenses, right?
Yeah, I mean Bruce Arians is old, and I think he's got a good feel for that
right,
stuff.
But I haven't. That's just an initial. I haven't looked. I mean, I haven't gone in depth. But when's the last time he's also coached too?
Well, he consulted in 2019, and I think he was a coach in 2018. But yeah, I mean, he's not in coaching right now.
And then also the connection between him and younger players, today's NFL players, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, I don't want to assume that just because he's old doesn't mean that he can't connect or that he won't connect or.
I'm not saying he can't either. I'm just saying that would be one of my
sure,
all that rolled together would be some of my concerns.
Yeah,
and once again, I haven't gone way down deep, much more than surface level than finding. Because look, you and I are great at this through the draft and everything. It's connecting the dots, man. Because of the Steelers' history. We both go to Wikipedia. We start both looking down the trees.
Just typing in like 2004 Buccaneers coaching staff.
Right.
Like literally, that's what I did.
Bookmarked.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a Kiffin in there. That would be an interesting choice. Although I don't think. I mean, you have to think that he knows all about Lane Kiffin, but Lane Kiffin's got the job at Ole Miss. Where is he now? That's another concern. Where in the world is Lane Kiffin? I've always thought the guy's been brilliant, and obviously he's cocky as hell, which I absolutely love the living daylights out of that. But you get where I'm going there.
I think so.
Just drawing the dots and all, and going back to those kind of things,
Right, yeah. So we'll see. I don't know how quickly they're going to move. They do have to at least interview one minority candidate, so they can't just elevate somebody right away or make a hire incredibly quickly. So just some context there. This probably will take a little bit of time at least to fill that spot.
Yeah, that's a little bit different too because how many years ago has it been?
2018 with Fiedner.
Was it 18 with Fiedner? Okay. The Todd Haley, we did not renew his contract the very next day. It was announcing that Randy Fiedner had been promoted to the job. So, are we sure that that new minority rule has to take place if the team goes in-house?
I believe so. The what I read just said if you have a vacancy that you have to hire or interview, one minority candidate for an offensive coordinator or any coordinator position, even if you wanted to go in-house. I mean, if you did an in-house minority hire, then I think you obviously fulfill that. D'Amico Ryans, for example, with the 49ers has been elevated to DC. Also, we're very old now that D'Amico Ryans is a coordinator in this league. Watch him play linebacker for the Texans. But my understanding is you have to interview a minority candidate regardless of even if you wanted to go in-house.
All right, so that will probably cause a little bit of a wider time gap here, obviously in hiring or naming a successor to Randy Fiedner. Anybody else kind of off of the that almost made the list?
Let me pull up my list here. It wasn't I mean, obviously, I'll keep doing more research because you never know what other names kind of pop up or get suggested over the next couple names. I had John, I always say his name wrong, John DeFlippio, former Eagles, Browns guy, but I don't think that made a lot of sense. The other ones were more offensive line geared. So that was basically the list I mean, you had mentioned Ken Whisenhunt as well, but I think for a team that just talked about you don't want to be status quo, bringing back Whisenhunt didn't really feel like accomplishing that non-status quo task.
What would you think about people suggesting Doug Peterson?
Maybe. I didn't look at that one too much. I know there was a report that Peterson was potentially going to take the year off, so I don't know how true that is or not. I mean, I'd be open to it though. I have not dug into that one too deep though.
What about one? It's a good time to kind of transition here. It would be, I think, the first time him being a true offensive coordinator, but obviously, I think a great fit as potential next offensive line coach, Doug Marrone.
Yeah, I was going to toss that to you because I know you wrote a great article yesterday talking about potential replacement for Sean Surratt in Doug Marrone. So you did the research on that. So what makes you think that would be a potentially good fit, at least for Pittsburgh?
Well, assuming you don't get Mike Munchak back, which everybody's clamoring for right now, to be an OC or offensive line coach. I view Doug Marrone as the next best thing. I mean, he's got a history, obviously, been in the league for a long, long time, primarily as an offensive line coach. Obviously, what he did in Jacksonville as a head coach is not, from a win-loss standpoint, but boy, he sure did give the Steelers fits, in a couple of games there. Yeah, he's just, he's got that background to be, and that's kind of what he's known for is offensive line coach now, and run game coordinator on top of it, and Mike Tomlin, if you go back to previously this earlier this season ahead of the Steelers playing the Jaguars. Now look, Mike Tomlin's going to give praise to every head coach, but I thought the quote of him talking about nuts and bolts. What was it exactly? Nuts and bolts type guy, and focused on controlling the football and the running game. Boy, that kind of perked up my ears right there, based on what Tomlin said just the other day there. So I think you have to, if he's open. I don't think Doug Marrone's going to get a lot of looks as an offensive coordinator. Do you, or head coach? At least 1 year out here.
Yeah, not as a head coach, but OC probably not. I guess those chips haven't completely fallen because they're still waiting some head coaching hires. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if O-line job was kind of the best thing he could get right now.
Right, and that's where I'm kind of going with that. And if he did that for 2 years, perhaps he gets himself back in a position, even as possibly OC with the Steelers.
Right. And in Pittsburgh, he could have the title of run game coordinator / offensive line coach if that boosts the resume a little bit.
Right, which they probably really need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? I mean, Surratt and Munchak were run game coordinators, and I don't know if that'll change with the new regime, but that's an option.
So where are you after? And look, he's got a sort of a link back to the Steelers, right? He was in training camp with them in 91.
Yeah, I don't know if that means a whole lot, but it is an interesting tidbit for sure.
And you go back to the interview that Marrone gave earlier this season. Asked about his time, his very limited time with the Steelers, and obviously has some memories of Chuck Noll, and really when he was back with the Bills, I think that was when he was reflecting on his time with the Steelers, because didn't the Bills have kind of a joint practice, if you will, with the Steelers out at Latrobe, and he was talking about how tremendous the Rooney family is and the tradition, and obviously saying all the right things. Like I said, well, that Rooney family, woohoo, and what tradition, I get a lot of it's a lot of obvious stuff there, but if there's kind of an off the radar, I would view him more as a potential offensive line coach, better fit than I would offensive coordinator fit, because of the sheer fact that he hasn't done that. But I'm sure he's sat in a lot of those offensive coordinator, meetings, if you will, during his time with Jacksonville. And I think you go back, you look at his history at some of the teams that he's coached when he was offensive line coach and how they've been able to run the football. I think that speaks kind of highly to what he can get accomplished as well too. They're going to get an experienced offensive line coach this time. No two ways about it. It's not it's not going to be somebody on the inside or anything like that. It's going to be somebody that's got a resume as an offensive line coach. And I view the list to be kind of fairly short.
Yeah, I think this is such an important hire. I think the team realizes, how important this hire is to get right. I think they want someone with an NFL experience and background. There was value in that in Mike Munchak. Value in someone that had been an offensive line coach before, brings a lot of experience, a lot of credibility to the table. I think Surratt, did a good job in pass pro and stunt pickup and stuff like that. But obviously, when you run for as few yards as you did since 1966, you're going to make a change. The run game was abysmal. So I think that's totally fair to make a change there. I think the Steelers are just finding out that maybe this process should take more time because obviously when they dumped Haley, they immediately went to Fichtner. And when Munchak said he was leaving for Denver, literally Surratt was in the room. As Munchak said to Tomlin, I'm leaving. Tomlin said to Surratt, all right, you have the job. So, that's a fact. And so I think they're finding this probably need to vet this a little bit longer, better, have some more options, and just go through more candidates and making sure you get the right guy.
Paul Alexander is someone else I threw out there as a potential offense. So, if you want gritty, no nonsense, X's and O's, in your face kind of type offensive line coach, that kind of. Now, I don't think there's. Where did he go to school? Was he the Penn State one?
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember. I've looked at so many of them here recently, trying to go through the trees and all. But regardless,
Penn State grad assistant. He went to Cortland.
That's it. That's what caught my eye was the Penn State grad assistant, which means absolutely nothing. But,
in '83. So it's been a while. But he's a really smart guy. Obviously, seen him on Twitter. I don't know if he even wants to get back into coaching in the NFL. Maybe he would. But he's obviously got a good thing going, training players, doing his Patreon thing, and maybe he just likes doing that more. I don't know.
Right. So that was another initial thought that I had. But Doug Marrone was really one of the ones that that caught my eye right out of the chute. And I wrote him up as potential offensive line coach. But I think you could make arguments for him as an offensive coordinator as well too.
Yeah, that's possible. So, you've done more research into O-line than I have. I've looked at maybe a couple names, just not really anything concrete. James Craig, who I believe is the offensive line coach at LSU. Chris Forrester, who's the game planning assistant coach for the 49ers right now. Obviously, also worked with Tomlin back in his Tampa Bay days, but I have not really gotten too deep into that. But I agree it is a really important hire to make.
Doug Marrone feels like Mike Munchak light. A little bit, Did
Marrone play in the? I mean, he was with in camp, but did he play in the NFL? Did he actually stick?
I don't think he did. Didn't he do something in one of those other leagues, and then the Steelers signed him away coming out of one of those? Was it the World League or something like that? WAFL or something like that. But I don't think he stuck.
No, it doesn't look like he did. Yeah, he was in the World League. You're right, London Monarchs. But bounced around the NFL a little bit, but never really actually did anything. Like, not that you have to, but again, I think they just like that Munchak style. Not that you're going to find another Hall of Famer like that, but that credibility is important.
And all right, and I haven't gone much deeper on offense. So I wanted to write that up because I just viewed that as that's an obvious. And if you listen to Doug Marrone talk, he's very even keeled. Now don't leave any analytics to him or decision.
Right in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, or decisions to go for it on fourth down or along those lines because he would definitely fit in with the Steelers from the aspect of not kind of being analytics based there, But look, you get at least another sounding board too, someone with head coach experience, that we've seen. Look, Tomlin's I don't think not afraid to hire that kind of personnel guy.
No, I think that would be a good fit, culturally, organizationally. So yeah, I think that all makes sense. Nothing you said there, I think, is a red flag.
All right, we'll see if I think Eddie Faulkner should be out the door, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, because I assume his contract was up. I think these coaches are signing 3-year deals. That's what it sounds like, non-renewal for Surratt, Fietner. I mean, those guys came in. I don't know. I'll have to kind of look at it, but these sound like 2 3-year contracts these coaches signed.
Okay. We'll see.
And then James Daniel. I think Daniel is a really underrated coach. He's been there since 2004. He's been coaching since the 70s. Obviously developed Heath Miller, Jesse James, Matt Spaeth. Zach Banner took to Twitter last night to talk about how much he liked James Daniel. Obviously working with him a little bit and some of those.
Maybe that's a problem.
Tackle eligible things. What's that?
Maybe that's the problem. You like him too much, I
mean, Daniel's an old school guy. You like him because he's tough on you. He's not because he's your buddy. But that. We knew the retirement was looming. Had mentioned that for a couple of years. Talked about that on Wednesday's show, so not a surprise there. But that's a guy that you don't really talk about too much. People don't think about too much, but played a really key role for a long time and be big shoes to fill.
I wouldn't go as far as saying the Richard Mann of tight ends, but I was a huge Richard Mann fan.
Mm-hmm.
But
and he was close to Mann. He was close to Darryl Drake before his passing. So, yeah, it's a loss for the organization for sure.
I think the most logical move there. People might not like it, but Blaine Stewart. I could see that happening there.
Well, I'm just curious. What is the logical part?
Just the next progression. Look, a lot of these guys start as offensive assistants, right? And then go into certain position group coaches and start going up the ranks that way. Obviously, Blaine has already worked with the wide receivers, right?
He was a receiver at JMU. I didn't see tight ends as a fit. I mean, maybe, but he's never been a tight end, never worked specifically with tight ends before, so I didn't know if that would be the best fit.
I just view it as kind of the next progression. Tomlin obviously likes him. Obviously, he's not ready to go up to offensive coordinator or anything. But yeah, I guess an argument could be made. Look, if you go candidate OC, then who's your quarterbacks coach?
That's true. It could be Blaine Stewart. He's worked with quarterbacks before. So yeah, I mean, and he's a guy that could take a college job. I had reported that last year that I felt like he could take a college job this year. Obviously, with COVID, that may change those plans. Who knows? But the fair point there.
My mind immediately went to Blaine Stewart as soon as the news about James Daniel.
Big shoes to fill though for Blaine Stewart.
Sure.
I mean, that's polar opposite guys in terms of experience and things like that.
But once again, these guys have got to start somewhere. From whatever offensive quality control assistants to they usually go into some sort of position group and obviously he's worked with a wide receiver some. It would kind of be more of a kind of a natural progression, I think, for him.
Give me like big Bob Lukashevsky vibes over here, special teams coordinator / tight ends coach, just kind of bouncing around. And yeah, some of these guys have done that. So I don't know if that's my expectation, but hopefully they can keep Stewart in some capacity because I think he is one of the risers in the organization.
Speaking of special teams, were you sitting on pins and needles yesterday?
I really wasn't. I mean, I don't know what Danny Smith's contract status is. And again, this team generally doesn't actually fire. They just don't. They part ways.
They fix the glitch.
They fix the glitch. So I don't know what Smith's status is. But I did not think he did anything to be warranted of a firing this year. And obviously, it sounds like he's going to stay, which I think is the right decision. And it's only a 10% bias statement I'm giving you there.
You do feel it's the right decision to keep him.
Yeah, I mean, what's the argument to fire him? Special teams are pretty good this year. The kick return game was finally fixed. That was the one thing I definitely got on Danny Smith for how bad this kick return unit was for the last 3 to 4 years. Much better this year. Once they went back to Barry, punt game really improved. Barry had a career year in average. Coverage units were good. Punt return game was good. Things faded at the end a little bit, but they weren't terrible, and the penalties were pretty minimal. So I'm happy with that group.
What about guys like what about Deuce Staley? Have you thought about Deuce Staley, OC?
I think isn't he getting a look for the Eagles head coach? I don't think he's going to get it. I have not thought about it much. I know that there's some Eagles fans that are pounding the table for him, so that's a good name to throw out there.
What about Anthony Lynn?
It sounds like he's going to go to Seattle. I think he's in talks after they dump Schottenheimer, which is another name you could mention. Brian Schottenheimer is just kind of the veteran OC that's on the market right now. Yeah, I mean, Lynn obviously as a head coach, the game management issues were abysmal. So I have not researched Lynn too much, but it sounds like he's going to be in Seattle.
All right. Because people are going to obviously want us to talk about those names some, so we did.
All right, Dave. Anything else from a coaching standpoint? I think those were the big ones. We'll see if any more dominoes fall. My guess is it won't happen. The names they announced are the names they announced, and they're not going to do this in waves because that's just bad PR. Talk about firings and non-renewals and stuff like that. But we'll see.
We'll definitely see for sure, and hopefully they. While it will probably take a little bit of time because of the minority rules and all like that, they need to get this knocked out obviously sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because Senior Bowl is in like 2 weeks. Not that they have to go to the staff with that go to the Senior Bowl with the staff fully in place, but it's certainly beneficial to do that.
All right. Where else are we in this progression here?
I think we're at the big news of the day, the future contracts that were signed that everybody's been waiting for the news for us to talk about. I think it's more interesting the names who didn't get futures contracts as opposed to the ones who did. But if you want to run through some of the notable highlights there, then feel free.
How about I just run through all 13? John Battle, the safety, DeMarcus Christmas, defensive tackle, Anthony Coyle, wide receiver Anthony Johnson, tackle John LeGlue, tight end Kevin Rader, defensive end Calvin Taylor, punter Corliss Waitman, tackle Brandon Walton, wide receiver Cody White, and cornerback Trevin Williams, and long snapper Christian Kuntz, and linebacker T. Gray Scales. Obviously, Kuntz and Scales did not end the regular season on the practice squad, but they spent a lot of time on it throughout the season, as did the rest of the other 11 that I just named off there. Now, of the group of players that were signed, few of them, Coyle and Radar, were elevated to the to the Steelers active game day roster from I have 4 in there for some reason. I must have changed that. Coyle and Radar were obviously elevated to the Steelers active inactive roster throughout, from the practice squad twice, I believe, during the 2020 season. Radar obviously saw a little bit of limited playing time there on offense. Coyle, however, failed to play any snaps once he was elevated, ending the season on the practice squad, not signed to reserve future contracts. Thursday were kicker Matthew Wright, wide receiver Deion Kane, running back Wendell Smallwood, who I think Wendell Smallwood was protected if not every damn week. He was pretty close to it. Tight end Charles Jones, and quarterback Devlin Hodges. People say, well, why didn't they sign those guys? Well, maybe they tried to, but maybe those guys because of them. I really except for maybe Charles Jones. Have all had a kind of cup of coffee, if you will, at the NFL level, probably not wanting to lock themselves into future contracts just yet, and going from there. Now, could any of these guys potentially sign reserve future contracts here? A week from now, 2 weeks from now, immediately after Super Bowl? Sure, it's possible, but don't get so caught up in the fact that they didn't say, especially Wendell Smallwood. That guy probably still thinks he can play. He's obviously logged quite a few snaps in the NFL to date. It would probably be in his best interest to take a look around right now. He's probably a little bit miffed that he never even, didn't get any work with the Steelers, really, so to speak. So
2 snaps. He got 2 snaps on special teams, and they were important. They weren't important snaps. Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, could these guys just circle back in a week or two after kind of seeing their other options and come back to Pittsburgh? Is that happened before? Is that still possible?
I would have to research that. I'd have to contact our research and development department at Steelers Depot.
Okay, gotcha. Which is just you. Just call yourself. We'll see, but yeah, hopefully, if they can get, obviously Duck's the lore of Duck, and Deion Kane has a little bit of intrigue there. Smallwood, I think you're right, probably just moves on. Right, it'll be someone I would like to at least maybe carry into camp, next season, just his depth there. But yeah, we'll see.
All right, Bruce Gradkowski, we mentioned, thinks Caldwell would be a logical fit there. I don't think did Minka say anything worth talking about when he talked?
Not really. I'll have an article for this at some point about the value of Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton, wanting to see those guys return. Did say that the issues in the Browns game, I think, were 100% mental. I think he said were the issues. So he's putting a lot of the blame on Steelers beating Steelers, which has been Steelers' greatest enemy these last couple of years have been the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, no one beats themselves the way the Steelers do.
Everything was going okay for the Steelers Sunday night until the 14:54 mark of the first quarter.
Yeah, I like that that meme you put up. Everything was fine, whatever.
Up until this point, and the ball was right over Ben Roethlisberger's head at that point. Mm-hmm. Everything was going perfectly fine until we blew an engine.
Yeah, I can only imagine Ben with a ball over his head is kind of one of those Duke hazards. The Duke boys got themselves in a sticky situation.
I'm surprised you can recall that. What do you remember about the Dukes of Hazzard? That was huge.
I've never even seen the original. I saw the reboot with Jessica Simpson, but I just know.
You never saw the original?
Culture. I've never seen the original. No, but I get the reference enough to be able to surprise you with one.
Yeah, I met John Snyder before, the original Bo Duke.
Where at?
We used to have this thing back in Pensacola. It was kind of a tradition. It was the church that the Catholic church that we belonged to. It was called St. Anne's Roundup. Okay, and it was like a whole weekend of kind of a fair type atmosphere, but it was huge there in the 70s and 80s and all like that. And one of the draws every year for that weekend event was they had booths to cotton candy and games and entertainment and stuff like that. But one of the draws every year is they would have a celebrity guest, come out there. And one year it was John Snyder back in the heyday there. I also met Heather Locklear as well too. When I was a kid, got a kiss from Heather Locklear. Actually, what a train wreck! Boy, she would have been fit right up my alley too. What a train wreck she became. You don't even know who she is, do you?
Only vaguely, not enough to discuss.
Okay, she was in T.J. Hooker, and which is a show know nothing about. Old Cop Show with William Shatner. What else was she? Obviously, Dynasty. I think was the show that she was on, and obviously had a relationship with Tommy Lee, who you probably don't even know who Tommy Lee is.
Drummer
from Motley Crue. Yeah. So there is your 80s references there, pop culture references for everybody listening to the show who enjoys those.
All right, Dave, any other Steelers news that's come across the last couple of days? It has been a busy couple of days. Let's talk about briefly, and I don't like to talk about this stuff too much because it gets overstated, and I'm more concerned about the bigger problems with Pittsburgh. But I have to say, some of the commentary, especially, and I love Chase Claypool's rookie year. I think he's a really good dude overall, but I'm not sure what the compelling reason is to continue to trash talk the Browns after losing to the Browns in terrible fashion really brings to you or the team or the media presence of things right now.
Man, you can certainly see who he hung around with his rookie season.
Fair point.
And look, they're both great kids. They're both phenomenal kids, I think. But it's probably easier for you. I get the whole social media world now. I get it now. I mean, look, I'm on it, 20 hours a day. I live and breathe by the social media world. I get today's player marketing himself that way. And look, Chase just evidently signed a endorsement deal with the Nike Jordan brand there. So look forward to more Chase Claypool interviews here for the next couple weeks through the Super Bowl. Those are obviously going to be on tap there. But you're right. Enough's enough on that, man. He tries to put out one fire by creating another fire. Look over here. He's not handling it well at all. What you do is you say, look, and his initial comments were out there, and then he was asked about him again. Does he still think, he tries to, his intentions, I think, are right. It's just, it's coming out of his mouth all wrong, and I that's me throughout my entire life. All right. Your mind thinks one thing, but your mouth says another thing, and then you look back after the fact and say, what the heck did I just say? And then people look at it and they start parsing. We live in a world today where we parse every single word. that comes out of people's mouth, and obviously it's easy to fit certain things. Take more than ever, it's easier to take things out of context and put them on the Twitter machine and get the likes and the favorites and the retweets and the and that kind of stuff there. So his best course of action would be look, I wish the Browns all the best. I didn't necessarily like the way they were carrying on about Juju, but I don't want to get into that. Let's talk about my new deal with Nike. That kind of stuff there. So yeah, it's cringeworthy right now, I guess would be the best term. Once again, he has a right to do whatever he wants to do off the football field, build whatever brand that he wants to build. Great, because look, football's not forever, right? You got to get as much money as you can because you just never know what life's going to bring to you on a day-to-day basis. But shut up already about the Browns. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if the worst thing you're doing at 22 is making some waves on social media, then overall you're doing pretty well. But I just hope this isn't, and I'm all for players having a brand and identity and something outside of football. I 100% sincerely endorse that. I just hope this isn't some sort of brand mentality of no media attention is bad media attention, and that's the philosophy that Claypool's taking here. Is just let me insert myself in every conversation to get people to recognize me and my name value and things like that, even though it's a very love-hate type thing.
Look, we all hope the Browns get clapped.
There's a good decent chance it'll happen.
But it's okay for me and you to say it, but it's not for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say just because that can come back to bite you. If they beat the Chiefs, it's like if they lose to the Chiefs, you go, well, it's the Chiefs. It's like, of course they were going to lose, but if they win, then you look like a real idiot, and then everyone yells at you. So
yeah, but here's the thing now: if they do get clapped by the Chiefs, then he's going to say, right. "See, I told you they got clapped by the Chiefs, and then we're going to open up the can of worms. We're going to have to dedicate another post to it then." But such is life in 2021 and being a blogger.
Yeah, and again, I am all for players being honest. I've always, we've always talked about how players, they give the coach speak and they don't really tell you anything interesting, and that can be boring. But there's always limits. Everything in moderation. I'm all for some trash talk and players being honest and giving you an answer that isn't just the cookie cutter type answer. But there are lines, and I think Claypool just put it to bed. You lost, lick your wounds, go home, and just let the Browns do their thing.
Right.
All right, Dave, anything else to discuss here? I think that was the bulk of today. Let me just kind of scroll through.
Bud Dupree's walking again.
Yeah, good for him. His rehab, TJ Watt commented a week ago that Dupree's rehab had been going really well, and that's a great sign for him. I think he can be ready for early in the season.
Medicine's moving faster and faster now. I can remember way back though when Rashard Mendenhall tore his knee up. Kevin Colbert saying, a year, and now that timeline has shrunk. I think, I don't think anybody's superhuman like Adrian Peterson. What was that, like 8 months or 7 or 8 months or something crazy like that? But 9 to 10 months. I think it has become kind of the reasonable time frame now. Now look, he had from surgery. Date, and he had that early December. So we're looking at January, February, March, April, May, June, July, puts him at 7 months, right? Or early July. 8 would be August. 9 months puts him right at the start of the season, right?
Yeah, I think he'll miss all or almost all of training camp, but if he could come back for by the week 4, I think that's a good target date for him.
Is that a kind of guy, if you're the Steelers, you put $10 million into, assuming you could even get to that point, which I don't think they'll be able to. But there's a lot of people that want me, you, us, the site to entertain more so than we're doing the thought of Bud Dupree returning to the Steelers in 2021.
I think Dupree's a great player. I wish him well, but I think just A, given the financial situation, that's going to make it just impossible. B, the fact that Alex Highsmith has played well as a replacement, and C, if you could spend that money on Dupree or spend it at another position, that maybe has slightly less value, but where you have a lot less depth there, like if you lost both your cornerbacks, I think you'd rather allocate that money somewhere else to bring back whoever, a Sutton or a Juju potentially or someone like that, as opposed to a Bud Dupree.
Right, and once again, the number. It's going to be interesting to see his situation play out from a market value. Without a doubt, had he continued on the path that he was in the 2020 season, he was looking, in my opinion, at $18 million minimum. All right,
agreed.
And maybe a ceiling. I don't know, as high as I don't know,
20 something,
20, 21, 22, something along those lines. But a minimum, you would think of 18 million. It's hard to gauge the value of a player such as that right now because of the date of his injury and everything that goes along with it. So 10 million just seems to be and I might have created it myself, but that's the number that's been floating out there now, him signing a 1-year deal. So if indeed you got in a situation where you could have that extra 10 million, you're taking it away from somewhere else you could possibly spend it on. Juju, Mike Hilton, Cameron Sutton. We all know the names by now there. So, all right, we entertained it. There you go. But it doesn't change the opinion of Al, or at least I don't think it changes your opinion.
No.
Bud Dupree's gone.
Yes, he is. And wish him well. Hopefully he gets healthy, gets a good contract, but just not going to be in Pittsburgh.
Obviously, if you could get him back for $5-6 million on a 1-year deal, that's a whole different story. But I really think he'd be selling himself short to do that.
Yeah, I think so as well. So, but good to see the rehab's going well, and that's all well and good.
All right.
All right, Dave, I think that's just about it. So we can probably get to a couple reader emails. I'm sure we have some reactions. Actually, before we do that, we should get to our picks of the divisional round two before we get to reader emails.
All right, let's it's going to be a short segment here when it comes to the MyBookie picks this week here, and let's start. Let me pull them up here. All right, we have the Los Angeles Rams at the Green Bay Packers. Packers at home, laying 7 points to the Rams. And we know Wolford's not going to be ready to play, I don't think, in that one. So it's either going to be Goff or...
I think it's Goff.
Or Blake Bortles.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they said Goff was going to start. So he's got that thumb surgery. I just can't pick against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, so give me Green Bay.
To lay to 7?
Yeah, I'm going to even go that far.
I'm going to go with the defense, Alex. Adjusted net yards per passing attempt. Now this is good on good here. This is cream of the crop. This is cream of the crop offensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt versus cream of the crop defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt. That's going to weigh into this, at least when it comes to the spread. I'm not saying the Rams are going to upset the Packers. It would not surprise me, though. So with that, give me the Rams plus the 7 points. This would be a big win for the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat should the Rams upset the Packers. Agreed?
Yeah, so agreed. So we'll be monitoring that pretty closely.
All right, Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. This one should be a good one, Alex. Buffalo Bills at home laying 2.5 to the Ravens.
Yeah, this will be a good one for sure. I forgotten to make our Super Bowl predictions before the postseason began, but I think had I done it, and I would have been cynical and people would yell at me, I think I would have had the Bills going to the Super Bowl just to be a little different and not pick the Chiefs. So I'm going to continue that here with the Buffalo Bills beating the Ravens by 3-4 points.
My heart wants the Bills to win this one. Look, here, we know what the Bills' challenge, and the Bills' adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat wasn't great overall, but can they defend a mobile quarterback, highly mobile quarterback, off-schedule quarterback in Lamar Jackson? That's going to be one of the huge aspects of this game is the Lamar Jackson factor. And look, that Ravens secondary, Marlon Hunt, they got some players back there as well too. This will be interesting to watch. I'll take the Bills. I'll lay the 2.5. I think that's my heart speaking here. Will the Cleveland Browns get clapped by the Chiefs? The Chiefs at home laying 10 points against the Browns.
I think the Browns have the advantage here because they have that really potent run game. The Chiefs' run defense has not been excellent, and they go with some more sub packages and lighter box counts and things like that. So I think the Browns do cover this one. I'm still going to go with the Chiefs, so probably not a clapping, but I think the Browns, close, but not close enough.
How many times did they really get to Ben Roethlisberger, that Browns defense?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't sacked on 68 attempts.
That's a lot. That's like 2 games.
Second most ever attempts without a sack. Drew Bledsoe holds the record. So that's a good point. Yeah, and if you want to beat the Chiefs, you got to get home to Mahomes.
And the Chiefs have had some time off here. I don't think we're going to be talking about the rust factor with them whatsoever. Give me the Chiefs to clap the Browns. I'm laying the 10 points there, Alex. In another good game, one that the History Channel will be watching. Did you see that, Frank Caliendo and his Morgan Freeman?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, you got to look at that. It's absolutely fantastic. It might be his best work ever, Frank Caliendo, in this. Old on old, Tom Brady versus Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. In New Orleans, Saints laying 3.
Yeah, I saw the meme of the photoshops of Brady and Brees on the History Channel. That was pretty funny. Man, where do I want to go here? I just think the Bucs have a better defense overall.
You would be correct, sir.
So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay.
Tom Brady gets his revenge here. Buccaneers win straight up. Buccaneers +3. I will take that one there. So that's the 4 games. While we got it down this far, who's going to be in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think what I would have gone with before the postseason began, and I promise you I'm not changing my answers here. I was going to go Buffalo, and I remember saying I should have said that on the podcast before Wild Card Weekend. So give me the Bills versus I'm going to go the Packers, and I'll say the Packers win the Super Bowl.
That would be an upset for Justin, that yards per passing attempt stat. I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong.
I had the Steelers and Buccaneers at the start of the season in there. I'll stick with the Buccaneers on one side. I think I got to go chalk the rest of the way. So I have the Chiefs and the Buccaneers with the Chiefs repeating.
All right, that's very reasonable, I think.
All right, let's see here. All right, shall we? Let's see here. Make good episode. Let's see. Here we go. Ebron production enough for year 2. Morning. This is from Ken. Morning, Dave and Alex. Attached my previous prediction below. Back in March for Ebron. Had to pat myself on the back a little. I predicted 550 yards and 6 TDs, and he finished with 558. Receiving yards and 5 TDs. Not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. My question is, do you guys consider this is enough to warrant year 2? With Vance likely gone and Juju's uncertainty of coming back, I'm holding on to Ebron for what he offers middle of the field. We all know this guy can't block and can be a drop machine, but he gave us some solid production at a position we've been lacking for a few years. Hopefully we can find our future George Kittle in March. Still bums me out, Dave. LOL. Thanks for all the content, guys, and keeping us Steeler fans occupied after the debilitating L last week. Good call. If that's Ken, that's not just super close, man. That's on it. There. It's going to be an interesting discussion with because of that production. You just can't turn your head on a guy catching 50-something passes for over 500 yards and half a dozen nearly half a dozen touchdowns. On top of that, though, you can't turn your head on the drops and the fact that he didn't block all that great.
Sure, but none of that, and you know this, none of that's surprising. When Pittsburgh signed him, they had to have known they were getting that and accounted for that. So that's not news to the Steelers. I hope not, at least.
And when you look at the cost being $6 million, that's cheap for that kind of production, assuming you can get it again. So personally, I'm not a huge Ebron fan overall, but I think there'll probably be some. What I do try to do is I see what I can get for him for a trade, which probably, because he's got 1 year left, is probably, you're talking about a 5th round, kind of circumstance there. But it's hard to imagine the Steelers cutting ties with him because of that kind of production, and especially if Ben Roethlisberger comes back. I just think you learn how to use him a little bit better, maybe lower his snaps down a little bit there, and Ken makes a great point. If you lose Juju,
I was just gonna say, you just lost your slot help,
right? So it gives you a little bit of protection there. So leaving my heart out of it here, my heart out of it here, I would think there's a good chance that Ebron returns.
Yeah, I think so. I think Vance is the cap casualty of the tight end room. You bring Ebron back, you get a draft pick, you maybe sign a Jesse James or have maybe Kevin Rader compete for a number 3 job with some low-level guy and make it work that way. But, I think Ebron returns.
Philip Garrow.
Also,
go ahead.
Real quick, Wade Phillips, unretiring. Wade Phillips announces his unretirement, and he is ready and available. Let's win. He tweets.
I like Wade. I don't think he takes himself too seriously either. Philip Garrow writes in, range from 8 the show rating from Wednesday. We got a lot of great feedback on that, Alex, and a lot of 8s. I think 11 in there. A lot of some 9s, a few 10s. He says it ranged from 8.75 to 9.25 on Monday. And while I'm here, I'll throw out a name I'd like to see as an offensive coordinator candidate, Mike Kafka, for the Chiefs quarterback coach.
Yeah, we had mentioned him earlier in the show in passing. Again, I think if they want to go with kind of that younger quarterback-focused hire, you just go with Matt Canada. I know Kafka's done a good job over there in KC. He'll probably continue to get looks as OC or something, or replace Bieniemy if he goes to become a head coach somewhere. Which seems like it's not going to happen. Which just can't figure that one out.
That's dumbfounding.
Kafka's a name on the rise for sure.
David Kapoor writes in, Wednesday's show was a 10. We'll miss those Alex Kozora train interludes.
Did you hear the one that went by earlier? I don't know if you.
No, I didn't. Did you hear my dog?
I heard the dog. Yeah,
everybody heard that. That's Hammy Hamilton. He's calmed down now. I don't know. Something got him fired up this morning here. Bryce writes in, still in agony. With everyone the Browns had to go through with COVID backups and playing on the road, this loss might be worse than the Tebow loss, an embarrassment for the whole organization. Bryce, you got to learn how to shorten these up, brother. Wednesday's podcast discussion was about running backs. Was very interesting to me. Would I love to see this team take a stud running back? Yes, but that doesn't mean run game success in their first year with the team. The 2013 Steelers were a good example of this. Overall, statistically, that was not a great running team, but Le'Veon Bell did do some very good things that year against the Ravens in both games, Detroit, etc. I agree from Wednesday that the priority needs to be retooling the offensive line with fresh young talent. Do you agree or disagree? He says he agrees with from Wednesday that priority needs to be retooling the offensive line with fresh young talent. Then he says, do you agree or disagree with my assessment of using 2013 example and not assuming success for young stud running backs? Look, I don't know how to frame this any other way than what I've framed it before in running backs there. And especially in the last show there. Would it hurt this team to have an early round running back? No. All right. Do I still think I've made my thoughts clear of why specifically not first round. But on the flip side, if you got 2 or 3 good years out of that running back and it resulted in a Super Bowl, then you got your worth out of it. You just throw him on the scrap heap after year 4 anyway, and then maybe you get to a situation where he beats the odds and you get him to the 5th-year option.
Right, yeah. I just think overall the principle and focus on the offseason for Pittsburgh will be run game, offensive line, a little bit at running back. I don't know if it's going to come in the first round, but that'll be the general theme, as they know they ran the ball terribly. That's going to be their focus for sure, and you're going to see some upgrades there.
Roland writes in, Long-time listener, David Alex. Big hello from a long-time listener. I can't remember how I found you, but I've been a big fan of the site and a huge fan of the podcast for at least 10 years. Wow, thank you for that. Dave, you and I are around the same age, and I swear we're brothers from another mother. From our love of the Steelers to movies, music, World War II documentaries. I also like Vietnam documentaries as well, too. And sadly, retired softball stars. Anyway, on to my question. I'm hearing the name Jim Caldwell as a possible replacement for Randy. What are your thoughts and or ideas for a new OC? Talk about it. Anyway, I won't make this any longer, or you'll toss it out. Can't wait for the fungible minutia T-shirts. We got a lot of people looking forward to those, Alex. So we got to make that happen. Peace and love, your buddy Springer there. Let's see. I think we, Roland, hopefully we addressed that in our offensive coordinator talk earlier in the show, and obviously we're not done with that. We'll be talking a little bit more about that moving forward there, and we're working on getting those fungible minutia T-shirts going there.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to do something there.
I'd like to see these new names. I'd like to see these new emailers, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. Caldwell, again, just speculation. No one's actually saying he's in the running. Those names have not been surfaced at all yet, but Caldwell is a good logical leap if you're going to throw out a name.
Gustavo writes in, good morning, gentlemen. I'd like to know how much would the new OC interfere with the roster moves on the offensive side of the ball? Example, cutting Derek Watt, re-signing Juju. As always, thanks for your attention. Yeah, look, they Kevin Colbert, and Mike Tomlin, get together on that. I don't think an OC, whoever it is, would interfere and say, we got to cut this guy, or they're not allowed to shop or have anything to do with the groceries.
Yeah, generally speaking, they're not going to make the decision. Still have some level of influence, sure, understanding what their offense is, the guys they need to make it work. But honestly and obviously, Tomlin, Colbert, etc. are the kingmakers of the team.
Lee Greenspan. First, Dave, wish you good health and get well as soon as possible. Thank you. Second, thanks to both of you for another great season covering this team. You're welcome. Thank you for that. As for my question, the Steelers, as you and Alex discussed in depth throughout the season, have a ton of impactful unrestricted free agents coming up. What compensation picks do you think we'd get from them signing somewhere else? Bud, Juju, both will get us at third, and most likely, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Thoughts? Take care. Lee from Toronto. Lee, obviously we would expect guys like Juju and Bud to potentially produce third round. Be careful with the term pick for pick. The better way to term that is third round pick, compensatory pick value, because remember, this weights heavily into losses and signings. Now, obviously, we don't expect the Steelers to be on the other side of the ledger sheet worth anything this offseason. So really, it'll be all gain. Really. So yes, you are correct, Lee. We would probably expect third round compensatory value for Bud and Juju. And then we'll see where it goes from there. I can envision maybe Mike Hilton being in that fourth to fifth round, maybe lower. We'll see, kind of neighborhood. Matt Filer probably in that fifth. How do you combine fourth and fifth, or fifth and sixth together into a word? That kind of Alejandro Villanueva. Look.
Well, he's over 30, right? So there's a cap on that, right? Is that the old Faneca rule?
Yeah, so that would cap him at what? The fifth?
I think a fifth was the highest you can be, so probably a fifth. So his contract should be big, but the over 30 thing is going to hurt the Steelers.
That's a great point on that. The old Lawrence Timmons.
Yeah, there you go.
Rule, so to speak, there. So that will tamper that one. Cam Sutton, if he walks, probably not going to really tip. And isn't there a limit to compensation?
There is. I forget what it is, but the Steelers actually might have to deal with a limit for once.
Pay attention to the kid on Over the Cap that does such
Nick Corte.
Nick Corte does such a great job. He when it comes to math and figuring out that formula. Look, we can spitball it, once because over the years knowing, well, this pick produced this pick and all like that, and look, it'll probably be easier than ever this year once again because the Steelers probably not going to be on the other side of the ledger there. But once again, remember, I think the league only doles out like 32 32 or 33 of these too, right?
Yeah, right. I think it's a max of 32, I believe, and then
And
it's just the cutoff from there.
Right, and obviously they might hit the max though with being doled out, depending on what guys like Filer and Mike Hilton bring. So
Right.
we'll see there, Lee. So yeah, look, we'll be talking about it, Lee, as the off season rolls on. Obviously, there. Dylan Baker writes in. Steelers Depot doesn't have. He's got a great meme here. I posted it on the Twitter machine yesterday. Steelers Depot doesn't have podcasts Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, so you can listen to each episode twice. He's on to us. It's like listening to a Grateful Dead show. You appreciate its greatness until you listen to it. You don't appreciate its greatness until you listen to it a few times. By the way, is George Kittle the prophet on Burning Shore? I don't know what that means. Do you know what Burning Shore, prophet on the Burning Shore? I don't get that reference there. Thanks for the email there, Dylan. Michael Hewlett writes in, love the show. By the time you guys probably named OCs, I don't care for but are by this time you guys probably named OCs I don't care for, but are far more realistic than what anyone else would come up with. That being said, why not kick the tires on Eric Bieniemy, also potential Mike T replacement? And is this more of Omar Khan's hire more than anything? He is supposed to supplant Colbert. No, I think this is going to be this will be a Tomlin / Art Rooney the second hire when it comes to the OC there. Eric Bieniemy, why would he go sideways right now unless he knew he had a good chance to get a head coaching job somewhere else? He's probably best served staying in that machine over there known as the Chiefs offense.
Yeah, I don't see Bieniemy making that lateral move. I think he's got a good thing going in KC right now with Mahomes having a lot of fun there with, Reed's getting that come with kind of crazy schemes and stuff like that. So, I think failing being a head coach, he'll just stay in KC.
Ramon writes in, hello guys, this is Ramon from Mexico writing for the second time. This week has been awful watching the team lose in the way they did. Well, we can agree was not great. I have two questions. I've always supported Mike Tomlin right until the last game. I know he's obviously going to stay, and I guess it is the right decision, but something needs to change. I see two options, either hire / promote an offensive coordinator who can manage the flow of the game, or do as other teams and lean more on analytics for decision making. I do not trust Tomlin improving his skills to manage a game. Haven't improved a bit in 13 years. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you want to get a good OC that can manage everything. So much about that job can be management just as much as it is scheme and play calling, understanding your players and having a feel for things. I don't think there's anything, groundbreaking there with that assessment.
Number two, what do you think are the plans for quarterback for the Steelers? I see Rudolph as a good backup quarterback, not a franchise quarterback. Maybe Roethlisberger plays one season or two, but if he didn't win this year with the team they had, I wouldn't bet they win it next year. Weird season coming. I don't know where we are heading next. Yeah, look, the quarterback position is going to be topic of discussion until we find out what happens with Ben here. And obviously such a decision will have to be made by March, by the middle of March there, especially if they're going to do any type of extension with real years or false years, or with, or just keep Ben as is. And so that's the big thing. Look, If Ben's out the door, it'll more than likely be Rudolph, and then you obviously entertain the fact of drafting a quarterback if it's known that Ben's not coming back for the 2021 season. However, if Ben does come back, and look, you're going to have a lot of draft capital probably to play with in 2022, right, Alex? I'll still believe it when I see it if they draft a quarterback in 2021. It's not unthinkable, obviously, and especially depending on what happens with Ben. But on top of that, I think, you certainly are building up a lot of potential draft capital with maybe some of these compensatory picks there. That and if, say, Mason Rudolph has to play and start and be your quarterback in 2021, and you finish that, I don't know, I'm assuming 17 games. 8-9, 9-8. Middle of the pack. Maybe you have some ammunition to move up even higher to get your next franchise quarterback or potential franchise quarterback, if you will.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Ben's still going to come back for 2021. If that's his final year, then I think you will have that freed up cap space for 2022, plus the cap booming, hopefully with COVID behind us. So you sign a veteran bridge quarterback for 2022, draft somebody then, and that's your hope that the guy's going to be the next Ben.
Jared Wolf writes in, love the shows. I literally laughing out loud at young Alex's food options. Not making fun, my man. I was once young, single man myself. Invest in a grill. The food options are endless, he says. Are you okay around fire?
Yeah, we'll see. I got to get more comfortable, I guess. But let's just do maybe one more email because my movers are coming a little bit early, and so I got to get ready for all that fun stuff.
Let's just end it there because you got to get out the door there, so I don't want to hold you up too long there. All right, with that, keep those emails coming. Alex and I will be back on Monday. We'll discuss what happened in the playoffs, the NFL playoffs over the weekend there. Anything else Steelers related that has happened, we'll get on that as well too. More coordinator talk. We'll start talking some salary cap, some unrestricted, restricted, and exclusive rights free agents, and all the stuff that you normally expect this time of year from Steelers Depot and a Terrible Podcast. So with that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Hey, we're worth a $20 bill, right? And also, if you like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, please go to the site, hit the ad-free button. For $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the support. You people have been great. And once again, Alex and I will be back on Monday. Alex, happy moving day. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.